Okay, this will be a guide for creating purchase orders from the Unordered tab. Now, first we can see that we have no POs created yet. We have no filters selected. We have 40 components total in our components report and no components yet on the selected components report. So first we need to remember that we need to complete basically two steps in order to create a purchase order. The first step will be just selecting which components we want for the purchase order, and then after we select them and we make sure that the components on this report are only the ones that we want, then we just click on transfer selected components to PO, which will create the PO with just the components that we want. Now, in order to select the components, there are a few different things that we can do. We can, for instance, click on the Select All Components option, which will select all of the components that are currently visible on this report, and will send them to the Selected Components report. We can also use the Grid Edit option over here, which will allow us to individually select components. And then after we select the components that we want, we can just click on Save to select them. For now, I'm just going to click on Cancel since I'm going to be showing different ways to do this. We can, of course, also use the filters that are on this same page. For instance, let's say that I want to filter by floor. And as you can see, we get the floor 2 value by default in this case. And now I'm only seeing components from floor 2 on this report. And of course, we can change the value for the floor on this second box. And after we do this, if we want to, we can, for instance, select or use the select all components option, which should select only the components that are currently shown here. That means it will only get the 6 components and then send them to the selected components report. However, it is important to say that before we click on this button, like after we select the filters over here, before we click on this option, we have to refresh the page to make sure that it works properly. Otherwise, it will just select all of the components that were shown before I added the filters. Now, there is also another way. So I'm gonna remove the filters for now. There is also another way. If, for instance, selecting the filters over here is not enough for us to see only the components that we want, since, for example, you can see that we can only select one filter at a time. If we wanted to select more than one, we can do so by using the full report option. Now, what we can do here to make this easier is to open this full report on a new tab, which we can do by right-clicking and then clicking on Open Link in a new tab option. Or we can press Ctrl and then left click on full report, and this will also open a new tab. As you can see, I have two tabs now with the same report. I'm going to close this one over here. And so now here what we can do to filter is use the dynamic filters over here on the left hand side of the screen, which will allow us to also filter by whichever criteria we want. As you can see, we can see over here that I'm filtering by floor. And the good thing here is that we can select more than one. So right now, for example, I have 3 components over here, and we can see that, for instance, there are 2 components with a heading value of 24. So if I select 24 in heading, now I can see only 2 components in here. You can see both filter criteria over here. And so now what I can do is click on Grid Edit and just select or check the selected component field over here, and then click on Save. And now you will notice I can see only 38 components in here where it used to be 40. That means that now the two components that I selected are no longer on this report. I can, of course, go back to the original screen. Right now it says 40 because I haven't refreshed the page. So I'm going to do that, refresh. And now I should be able to see the same 38 components on the report. Here it is, 38 components. And if I go down, I can now see only two components on the selected components report. And so after I'm sure that these are the only components that I wish to create a PO with, I just have to click on the transfer selected components to PO. This will create a PO and refresh the page. And now I should be able to see my PO on this same screen. Here it is. It says that I have one PO. It's the new created PO. Now I have only 38 components in here and no components selected since the ones that were selected before are now on the PO. And we can click on the PO if we want to verify the components. And if we go down to here it is, the components report, we can see that we have a single, in this case, a single record. However, it has both components. It has a quantity of 2. And so now our PO is created successfully.